Dev Patel. Dev Patel, are you listening? Are you tuned in? Dev Patel, if you're listening, just go ahead and turn this one off. I'll talk to you later. You have been working so hard lately with your new movie and everything. Just take a break. Come back for the next episode. I'm sure you will love that one. All right? All right. I'll catch you later. See you later, Dev. Everyone else, hello and welcome to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a freshly brewed coffee and movie review podcast for you. My name is Nick Delaney and I'm your show host, self-declared movie critic, former barista. Yeah, I know. We'll get to that later. And the moviegoer who is one more Fall Guy trailer away from losing his marbles. Do you want to get spicy margaritas after this? No? Well, I do want to get several drinks from Subculture Coffee Roasters, this episode's coffee review. Then I'll be reviewing Monkey Man, directed by, written by, and starring Dev Patel. Hence why I asked him to skip this episode. But Dev Patel, if you are listening, wow, I can't believe this episode reached you. And also, you can stay. It's okay. Please, take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk tea over some coffee. Yeah? Yeah. But of course, please make sure you're following Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok and Coffee Nick Pick on X. There you can find show updates like new releases, movie discussions, coffee pictures, and of course a lot more. Again, that's at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. First of all, I would like to address the elephant in the room. Yes, at the time that this episode will be released, I will either have only one more shift as a barista or be a barista no more. I'm very sad about this. Very, very sad. I really liked being a barista. It was really hard. It had extremely challenging and difficult days and moments and even weeks. But it was really nice to bring something to people that brought them so much joy and comfort. I really like this about coffee. Wow, I'm immediately going to like the corny stuff, aren't I? Okay. Being a barista gave me the resources and the access to create these fun drinks that, were in my imagination and to create like things that I thought really tasted good. Even I was only a corporate barista, but I even got this sense of like, oh, I'm creating like really cool drinks and everything. And with that being said, one day I hope to work for an actual coffee house, like a local coffee house. I think that if you're looking to truly master the art of coffee making, working for a local coffee house is definitely your way to go. I wish that I experienced coffee house work more instead of just corporate coffee where everything is sort of a number system, but I still feel like I got to know coffee and be passionate about it. And I'm so grateful for my time as a barista. But this is not all bad news. I'm leaving my job as a barista because I'm starting a job next week in DC working with digital media. Yay, that's so cool. This has come after a long job search. I've been looking for jobs related to my college major and my field of interest since before I graduated college. So that was over a year ago. And I haven't stopped looking. I've been applying to jobs aggressively and constantly since then, since over a year ago. And I mean it, like every week I send out applications. And I've only now accepted an offer for a job. And this was the first offer I got. It's rough out here. It's really rough, but I am really happy with this job. I'm so excited to get started. And I'll be giving little updates here and there. And in some way, I'm leaning into a different aspect of this podcast. Before my job was coffee and now my job is media. So it's kind of like I'm just leaning into a different interest, which I'm really excited about. And hopefully coffee will still have a part in my work somehow. So, with all of this being said, I'm in a transitionary period right now. So, please bear with me. I don't know what this adjustment will be like, especially with a much longer commute for work. I'm promising myself that the release of episodes for Coffee Nick's movie picks will not be affected in any way, but anything can happen. It is a lot of time dedicated to getting these episodes out, but it's time well spent and time I really enjoy. And trust that the coffee side of this podcast is not going anywhere anytime soon. And this podcast itself is not going anywhere. If anything, I feel like this is a great opportunity for the podcast, and I'll be growing my digital media skills so much more. And also, I'll be working in a new place, a completely new place, a city with a lot more exciting coffee shops. In fact, like 100% more exciting coffee shops because where I'm at now, living and working, has zero like local coffee shops that are not corporate chains, huge corporations. There's going to be a lot more exciting coffee on the podcast. So I'm very excited about that. Another note for today's episode: I will not be talking about Twin Peaks today. I swear it. But I do feel the need to address how this show has become very David Lynch centric. And that's because I reviewed David Lynch's Dune. I talk about Twin Peaks every episode, and I will have an entire episode dedicated to Fire Walk with Me for the next episode. There is nothing wrong with this, but I feel the need to note that this is not my intention. It is merely coincidence. This podcast, its lifespan has been at a time where I'm very interested in discovering David Lynch's portfolio. I recently got really into Twin Peaks again. I was into it in high school, which I mentioned before. And this is the first time I've been watching it the whole way through and watching the third season, and really, the first time I watched Fire Walk with Me, and it makes me want to discover like everything David Lynch related. This is new for me. This is like I'm not constantly in the state of David Lynch. So you all are experiencing this with me. I want you to know that. I Before I really knew who David Lynch was and experienced his work, I only knew him by the annoying people in my film classes who did not stop talking about him every single class. And now I'm one of those people, except I'm not in any classes, but I talk about him every single episode of my podcast. And I'm so sorry. I just need to talk through this with you all. I guess I did talk about Twin Peaks today, so the trend continues. I'm so sorry. Next week should be the last week for a little while that I talk about Twin Peaks or David Lynch or anything like that. Maybe. We'll see. Because I might want to review another one of his movies soon. We will see. Bear with me. I think it's fun. Don't you? Anyways, enough of that. What did you all think of The Eclipse? Yeah. Yeah, the second act was a little boring. I think the performances were good. The moon was like really the star of the show. The sun was just kind of there. Overall, I would rate The Eclipse maybe 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. Uh, so yeah. Anyways, let's move on to why we're all here. The coffee. Now brewing this week is Subculture Coffee Roasters. This is my first coffee house review. I will be reviewing several of their drinks and then reviewing the coffee house overall. So like I said, I've tried several things here, so I feel confident reviewing the coffee house as a whole, but I'm going to be doing rapid reviews for each drink that I tried. And those drinks are the iced matcha latte with strawberry and oat milk, their chai latte, affogato, and an iced latte with oat milk. Now, I did not go to Subculture Coffee Roasters, excuse me, 4 different times, although I kind of wish I did. I was just leeching off of everyone else's order. Personally, the 2 drinks that I got were the iced matcha latte and the regular iced latte. So, Subculture Coffee Roasters has 4 locations throughout Florida. So, if you are in Florida, check and see if one's near you. But I went to the one located in Palm Beach Gardens. So, let's start with the iced matcha latte with strawberry and oat milk. The biggest thing I have to say about this drink is that the flavors are very, very light and subtle. I added the strawberry. The barista encouraged me to add the strawberry to it. And I will say that the strawberry was nice, but it was like the flavor was alluded to rather than directly referenced for my literary individuals out there. When you do pick up on it, the matcha and strawberry flavor profiles go hand in hand. So thank you to the barista that recommended this to me. This is a lovely springtime drink. I think the matcha at Subculture isn't too sweet and it's very smooth. And that's because they actually make it with a chawan and with a chasen, which is the bowl and the whisk used to mix teas. So props to Subculture baristas for making the drink correctly, and with like the right utensils, unlike a major corporate chain I'm thinking of. But as I said, this drink was extremely, extremely light and subtle. As I was drinking it more and more, it started to really just taste like a glass of oat milk. And I think the sign of a perfect amount of flavor in coffee and tea drinks is that the flavors are just enough to cover the milk flavor. So for that reason, I unfortunately give this one the Nick mix, but I do encourage you to try it. It is very refreshing and it is really tasty. It just wasn't quite enough. The next drink I'm covering, I want to talk about the chai latte. And look, I know this is a coffee podcast. I know. But chai and matcha are technically coffee house drinks, so leave me alone and stop sending me envelope after envelope of hate mail. Please. Please. Anyways, I will start by saying, frankly, this is, frankly and flat out, this is the best chai latte I have ever had. I can say that confidently. And I feel like such a bad reviewer right now. I can't credit this to any particular reason other than they put a topping on the drink that was just plain whimsical. It was wonderful. It was like this cinnamon gingerbread type of topping, and it paired so nicely with the chai. And I think this is just an easy, simple thing to elevate your chai latte that's so, I mean, pretty much all coffee houses do not do. This chai latte transported me to a cozy, comforting feeling of unwrapping Christmas gifts in my childhood. Unwrapping perhaps a Lego Batman game or maybe a toy Star Wars lightsaber. It just was a feeling of pure joy, childhood nostalgia, and happiness like there was nothing wrong in the world. What was I talking about? Okay, yes. Personally, I'm not a fan of the idea that certain flavors like cinnamon and gingerbread and childhood joy, that those flavors are in season and out of season. My hot take is don't deprive me of those flavors. Just because it is summertime does not mean I don't want a gingerbread latte. I think I want to enjoy those fun, festive flavors all year round. I would like to have the option to have those all year round, is what I'm saying. I don't want us to limit ourselves by saying, oh, you can only have pumpkin spice in October or November. I can eat pumpkin pie all year round. I can enjoy those flavors all year round. Do not deprive me of that. Long story short, the chai latte gets the Nick pick. Lastly, I would like to review Subculture's affogato and iced latte together. For those of you who don't know, affogato is a shot of espresso poured over top of a scoop of ice cream. So this is usually a dessert item. And an iced latte, as we know, is just espresso with milk. So I'm really just reviewing their espresso right now. So this review is a pretty big claim as well, but I'm going to say it. Subculture has some of the best tasting espresso that I, in all my years of coffee, have ever had. I've had a lot of espresso throughout these years. None of those, though, have really stood out to me like this one has. Subculture's espresso has this unique, tangy twist to it, which I absolutely loved and am obsessed with. The espresso was very acidic and it had these notes of citrus orange and some cocoa. And as an affogato, the espresso was almost tart. And I think it was very shocking when I drank it. I was not expecting that, but it was really nice. With the oat milk as a latte, though, it had this delicious nutty aftertaste, and it was very refreshing. I feel it's important to note that I usually add flavors to my latte, but I was so glad that I didn't add any flavors to this latte because the espresso was just so good on its own and it was so distinctive and rich that it was probably better off without any flavor, anyways. I was really surprised with the latte and with their espresso here. It was so good, so perfect, so show stopping. If you are in the Palm Beach area or in any part of Florida, please go to Subculture and get their espresso because it is an absolute high ranking Nick pick. So, with all of that said, I don't think this comes as any surprise, but Subculture Coffee Roasters, you are awarded the most enthusiastic Nick pick of the show so far. Amazing, show stopping, delicious coffee and tea. Thank you, Subculture, and thank you to those baristas for your care and dedication to your craft. Yeah, round of applause. Round of applause for you all. Oh my God, have I been yapping? Let's get into this coffee thought. This one is going to be short, and if you listen to the last episode, you probably know what this coffee thought will be about. So grab your coffee. I'm going to crack mine open. So my coffee that I'm drinking as I record this, it is a raspberry flavored coffee that does not have any coffee in it at all. Instead, it has sparkling water, and it is spiked, and it's with a hint of raspberry. And it's actually not coffee. It's called White Claw Hard Seltzer. So let me take a sip of this. So get yourself a White Claw or coffee to sip on while we talk about this. This episode's coffee thought, to no one's surprise at all, is Cowboy Carter by Beyonce. What? I mean, we knew what she was going to do. We knew what she was up to. We knew what she was plotting and planning. For those of you who do not know, Cowboy Carter is the second act to Beyonce's album trilogy. This one is a country album, although it's really just a Beyonce album, as she says. And the first act was a house album. Beyonce, Beyonce, Beyonce. Wow. I mean, she did it again, but she does it every time. So what am I supposed to say? This album, it just completely lived up to the hype of Renaissance. I am so pleased and happy with this album. And it's just so exciting. You know, my favorite album of all time is Renaissance. And to have a sister to that album is just, I can't even believe it when I think about it. And, you know, it's here, it's released. I could listen to it whatever I want to. I am so happy. The fact that this album is out makes me so happy. And I don't think I could ever stop being happy because this album is out. So if you ever catch me like being sad or anything, first of all, ask me what's wrong. But second, remind me that this album is out and that, you know, at that time there will probably be a third album out. I'm just so excited. The album adapts the genre of country in a way that is just so inventive and clever. I can't say enough good things about this album. If you have not listened to it, please just go listen to it and be sure to listen to it from start to finish. Don't press shuffle. Don't, because she pays so much attention to transitioning one song from the next. It's so fun. And with Beyonce, nothing is accidental. Everything, every breath of air she takes in each song she makes is purely intentional, and there's a reason behind it. And, you know, this album, there is so much that I'm learning from it. So just thank you, Beyonce, for creating this. I can't even imagine how much hard work and research was put into this album, I, I'm in shock. If you are someone that does not like Beyonce, I have so many things to say to you, but I'll just say, please listen to this album. There's so much stuff about Beyonce in the media. There's so much bad press about her, especially in the past. Please put that aside and listen to this album or listen to Renaissance, please. But I think that Cowboy Carter is such a good entry point for such a diverse audience. You know, people that don't like her, people that do like her, people that don't know about Beyonce or really haven't listened to a full album from her. This is your time to start. This album is incredible. Okay, my favorites, and this is where I'm going to end it. My favorites from Cowboy Carter is number one, Two Hands to Heaven. That I was levitating in the air when I first listened to that. And every time after that, actually. Number two, Spaghetti. I think that that song is so fun and it has so much packed into it. There's a lot to unpack in Spaghetti. Number three, this has got to be Jolene. Jolene, I'm a huge Dolly Parton fan as well. So to have my favorite artist, Beyonce, covering another one of my favorite artists, Dolly Parton, and making the song her own is just, it blows my mind. And Dolly Parton is featured on the album as well. She has a few interludes where she's speaking, and ugh, my heart is so full. Anyways, that's my coffee thought today. Thank you for listening to me rant about Beyonce. That was just like a whole lot of jumbled up words I said. That is what Beyonce does to me. I cannot form a coherent thought about her because it's hard to put into words just how incredible of an artist she is and the level of detail into anything that she puts out. Anyways, the main event today. Let's get into this episode's Now Showing. Now Showing this week is Monkey Man. Monkey Man is directed by, written by, and starring Dev Patel in his directorial debut. Patel plays Kid, an underground fighter in India who makes a feeble living by intentionally losing matches night after night in bloody defeats to more popular fighters. After a lifetime of suppressed rage from his traumatic childhood, Kid uncovers a path to exact his revenge on those responsible. Let me take a sip of my drink. I honestly could not have told you any of that about the movie until maybe the third act. And in fact, I could not tell you the name of Dev Patel's character, Kid. I could not tell you that until I started making this episode. When I started writing the script for this episode, I was like, oh, that's his name. And that doesn't mean anything, but I'll discuss it in a second. I will start with this. I want to start by mentioning that from what I've heard and what I've researched, this film went through production hell. Throughout the course of this film, Patel broke his hand, foot, and tore his shoulder during the action sequences. This film also was victim to a COVID shutdown, so it was on ice for quite a bit of time. And when it was coming back, it was in question if the movie could even come back. The film was originally picked up by Netflix, and then it was dropped abruptly by Netflix. There were a lot of budget issues with the film. During one of the action sequences, one of the cameras broke, and they had to film a large portion of the film using an iPhone. A lot of the breakaway objects for the film, like a table or a chair that has to be smashed during one of the action sequences, instead of getting like a new breakaway object for the next take, they had to glue those back together because of the budget constraints. In the end, Jordan Peele, who is, you might know him as the director of Get Out, Us, and Nope, he has his own production company, Monkey Paw Productions. The film survived ultimately by Monkey Paw purchasing this film and giving the rights to the film over to Universal. Overall, this was a grueling but admirable production process. I think that the process in itself deserves a lot of recognition and respect. And that goes with any film. Any film, the production process, there is so much work, so many hard hours of labor put into the film that go unnoticed most of the time. But, especially with this film, this production process deserves some recognition. So that's why I'm taking the time to talk about it. And this leads me to want to talk a little bit about Dev Patel, who is one of the major creative forces behind this film. Although I haven't seen Dev Patel in a lot, I've always really liked him and enjoyed what I have seen him in. But after this movie, I have a newfound sense of respect for him. I deeply appreciate the determination that he had with this film. I think that it's very inspirational that he made this happen. By watching this, you can really tell that this was and is a passion project of his. This is not just any action movie. There are so many layers to this. Monkey Man is something to note is Monkey Man is centered in Indian culture and eventually ends up addressing a lot of political issues that exist within India. And many believe that this latter reason is why Netflix dropped the film so abruptly, is that they didn't want to upset audiences in India. I really want to start some of my movie reviews talking a little bit about the production because I think this really helps contextualize a film and it contextualizes my rating of the film. And I don't want, like, if I give a film a Nick Nix, I don't, which we'll see what my rating is later, but I don't want you to think that's what I give this film. I don't want you to think if I give a film a Nick Nix that I'm discrediting the production that went behind it because even if my experience with the film is not great, I still respect the production and the creative energy that was put into this. So that's why I'm mentioning it here. There is so much to note here that I deeply admire and respect. That's happening behind the scenes, that's happening off screen that we do not see. So I want to note that, and that's something I want to start talking about with my film reviews. Overall, though, I cannot wait to see what Dev Patel does next. He has a level of detail and concern and care for his films that I think is going to translate to all of his future projects. So, Dev Patel, thank you. Now to get into my review of the film. There is a very clear three-act structure in this film. Right away, I will say the first and second act feel like I'm bumping into furniture in a dark room. For these two acts, I really could not at any point tell you what was going on. And that's not like because the film was, so fast paced and, all these crazy things were happening. It, it seems like it was trying to tell a story and trying to, have its audiences follow along, but it just was not communicating that story well at all, in my opinion. I do not think that specifically the writing in these first two acts does a successful job in exposing the story to the audience. There's a lot of different and moving elements that these first two acts reveal to us, but personally, I never had a good understanding of what those elements were, what was going on with them, and what they meant for these characters. It wasn't until the third act that I really had a grasp of the characters and their goals and what was going on, or really anything about this film. I could not tell you until the third act. In the first two acts, the reasoning for kids' choices were not really explained. In the beginning, he wanted to work for this kitchen and he pressures the manager of this restaurant into giving him a job through like this elaborate scheme of stealing her purse. And like there's this long montage of people passing along the purse. And this really confused me because I didn't know if this was like planned by Kid to manipulate her into giving him the job or if this was just a coincidence. And, this is just a small part of the story. It really doesn't mean anything to the larger context, but it's just a small example of the confusion I had and how this film did not explain things too well. Eventually, through working in this restaurant, Kid finds a way to move up and serve elites in like this exclusive club sort of thing. And at that club, he recognizes a man there connected to his traumatic and dark childhood. But, that's not something we know while watching the film. We just see him, start freaking out whenever he sees this man. This is where the true action of the film starts. Earlier in the film, there is action when Kid is fighting in the underground fight club. So the action does start here, and I appreciate that the action is spread out all throughout this film. But this moment when he sees this man in the club is when the real action starts. And although the action starts, like I said, you don't really know why. You don't know why Kid is triggered to fight these people. Um, I pretty much explained the plot of the film to you guys thus far, but I only could do that because I've watched the whole thing and I know where it ends up. As you're watching the film, if you're in that theater chair, you don't really know why Kid is doing what he's doing or who these people are, what his past means, what exactly his goal is. Everything about this film, it seems, is unclear at this point. And this is like maybe 40 minutes in, I want to say. And I think that a level of uncertainty in a film is okay, but I don't think this film did enough early on to guide its audiences to cohesive conclusions about the plot. Watching this through for the first time, the plot beats just felt scattered and meaningless. Eventually, though, the third act starts, or, it's kind of in the second act. We see Kid's backstory fully revealed. We see his traumatic childhood and what exactly happened to him that makes him want this revenge against these people so badly. And this is when the film started to make a lot more sense, but this was way later on in the film, maybe an hour in. And I think that my confusion with the film could have been resolved by showing a portion of this backstory at the start of the film. And I'm not saying show everything right away at the start. I think maybe showing the backstory leading up to like the climactic point, and then cutting right off at the climactic point and saving that for later could have worked. I just think we needed to establish this backstory and the characters that had a part in it earlier on. But yeah, I didn't really know what was happening. And I was in a good mood while watching this. Going in, my mind was clear. I felt ready to see this movie and to understand it. So I was really surprised that I didn't understand it and could not keep up. So, getting to the action of this film, which is the star of the show, I thought it was just okay until the third act. There were several decisions made with the action that I did not like. Some of the choreography in the fight scenes did not really make sense to me. For example, in the trailer, we can see that in one fight, Patel's character breaks this large fish tank to have the water come flowing out. Out of context, this looks really cool and like unique. But in the film, though, this happened and it was completely inconsequential to the fight. Kid smashes the fish tank and then it just cuts to him like in the next room running away. We can assume that he broke the fish tank to slow down his opponent, but we can't actually see that happening. So for me, it just didn't make sense right away and it felt very dissatisfying because I was like, oh, there's this cool visual of him breaking the fish tank, but what exactly did that do for him in the context of the fight? In action, I think it's very important to show this cause and effect playing out. Choices like this, like the fish tank choice, those sorts of things, I felt like there was a lot of that in several of the action sequences in the film. I also want to talk about the cinematography in these action sequences. It was extremely disorienting. I will say that I'm not really a fan of watching these long winded action sequences play out, so I think I'm a little biased here. But the choices with cinematography were really jarring, and I feel like compared to action movies that I really enjoy, like John Wick or something, those action sequences are not quite as disorienting. There's a lot of movement happening and a lot of different camera angles and all these crazy things, but it never makes me feel like, whoa, what is happening? So the camera in the Monkey Man action sequences, most of the time were, or really almost all the time, were not in a fixed position, meaning that the camera sorts of floats in the air and moves with the characters and such. And the movement of the camera was so rapid and jerky that it just was no longer visually appealing to me. And this sort of cinematography also bled into some of the less action oriented sequences, which was very distracting and felt out of place to me. The last thing I want to note about the cinematography is that there were several POV shots. I want to say, why in the year 2024 are we still using POV shots? I am really not a fan of POV shots unless it's revealing to audiences something that only that character can see, that we would like need to be in their eyeballs to witness, if that makes sense. I do not think a POV shot is necessary. A POV shot to me feels very bland, and I just think there are so many other unique ways to show perspective than a character's POV. But that's just me. I know I have a very extreme opinion when it comes to POV shots, but I do not like when movies have them. I know I just ranted a lot about things I did not like about this movie, but so I want to talk about some of the things I did like. There was a training scene at a temple with Dev Patel's character, and he takes off his shirt in this scene, which was fun. And I like that all of the women at the temple were like, "Oh my gosh, blah 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 blah." I thought that was really funny. But also, there was the person on the drum-like instrument, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name for that instrument, but they played that sort of beat that was playing in the trailer where it was like dun dun dun, and Dev Patel learns to sort of hit the punching bag with the beat of the drums, and his fighting sort of evolves as the music evolves. And I thought that this was a really cool sequence, and I'm going to be thinking about that one for a long time. Another moment I'm going to be thinking about involves an elevator and a small knife, I believe. And if you've seen the movie already, you know what I'm talking about. This was one of the most fun action sequences of the film. Kid is fighting someone in the elevator, and both their hands are tied, and they almost stab Kid with a knife, but he catches the knife in his mouth and ends up stabbing them with his mouth. Um, I might have gotten that wrong, but that's the gist of it. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that moment. It was just crazy. And the final fight scene was really good. It kind of was like a final boss fight in a way that the two characters were staged and the lighting and everything. So I really did enjoy that. So there were really great moments among this film that stood out. And once again, I really did enjoy this film's dedication to its message, and I enjoy the message that it did communicate. I feel that it was very powerful and important, and there were several moments with a lot of depth surrounding the political issues this film depicts. And I think overall that this film is successful in critiquing class and religion and the issues that it tackles. Dev Patel describes this film as a revenge film about faith. I really like that. I love the juxtaposition in this quote. Revenge and faith often don't go hand in hand. But I think that this film really forces them to go hand in hand. And this is the one angle where I think this film was very successful and I really enjoyed it. It had a lot to say about faith. So if that's something that interests you, I really encourage you to see this film. And also, of course, this film is very big on revenge. It does not pull its punches. So it's very bloody. So if you're into that sort of thing, this is for you. And overall, I think all of these things is what makes the third act so successful. I think all of those like moments I mentioned that I really like, all of those are in the third act. And this is where the film really picks up and really starts to be great. And it's when things start making sense. The third act, I was like, okay, I kind of get what's happening here. I see where this is going. So, yeah, good third act. With that being said, I think this is my hottest take with movie reviews so far. I have to give Monkey Man a Nick Mix. Dev Patel's Monkey Man promises and delivers an exciting third act, complete with effective social commentary and thrilling action. However, it's the first two acts of this film that failed to communicate a cohesive story and characters, leaving me a bit clueless and disoriented. I want to say, please don't get me mixed up. I do encourage you to watch this film. In fact, please go see it. I want you all to know to please never take my reviews to mean whether you should go see a movie or not. That is solely for you to decide. Also, just because I give a movie a mix or a nix does not mean that the movie is bad. These ratings I give are just a quick way to summarize my overall feelings about my experience with the film and what I saw. You may have a completely different experience and see things that I completely missed. I have to say that the pick, mix, and nix are the least important thing that I have to say about a movie on my show. Anyways, I feel like I have to say, please go see Monkey Man. Even if I gave it the Nick mix, I encourage you to watch this. And if this is the first episode that you are listening to of Coffee Nick's movie picks, I'm so sorry that you had to start off with such a hot take. Please don't use this review to discredit my other reviews because I know so many people are enjoying this movie. I will say that I'm the outlier. A lot of people are enjoying this. So I think if you're listening to this, you probably will too. Now, on to this week's Dear Coffee Nick. In this segment, I will be reading some letters from fellow coffee and movie enjoyers about their own coffee and movie opinions, reviews, thoughts, hot takes, or whatever. So we have one letter today, and this letter says, Dear Coffee Nick, Starbucks lavender drinks. Yay or nay? And this is from Coffee Morgan. Thank you, Morgan, for sending in this letter. I have not talked about Starbucks on this podcast yet, and I think that's kind of crazy, but now is the time. So thank you, Morgan, for sending this in because I'm going to start talking about Starbucks for you. I have never been a fan of lavender drinks with coffee. I always thought that the lavender flavor was too floral and too perfumey. It kind of felt like I was just drinking soap. But I think that Starbucks really nailed a lavender that I enjoy. Their lavender, I really like it, and I've been drinking it a lot. It is really good, and it's not really like that soapy lavender taste that I don't like. It's more, it's very sugary, which maybe that's why I like it so much. Uh, I don't exactly know what it is. It's just so good, and it pairs very well with their blonde espresso. And I've also been getting the lavender cold foam on a cold brew, and that is really good. Another thing I do with their lavender is a lavender cream frappuccino with oat milk and Java chips blended in. I've really enjoyed that too. So, yeah, I give the lavender Starbucks drinks a yay. Thank you for sending that in, Morgan. If you would like to send in a letter, please feel free to write Dear Coffee Nick through DM on social media or email coffeenicksmoviepics@gmail.com. Everyone and Dev Patel, thank you so much for tuning into this week's Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. If you like what you heard, the best way you can help the show is by giving it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and subscribing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Other ways you can help are by telling your friends about the show. Please, 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 if you know someone that likes movies or coffee or hates both of them or hates me, tell them to listen to it so they can, cuss me out on the way to work and I don't know, whatever they want to do. I don't care. Tell your friends about it. That would be a huge help. I would greatly appreciate it. So, takeaways from this episode: if you're in Florida, go to Subculture Coffee Roasters. They have some of the best espresso and chai tea I have ever had, and that is not an overstatement. If you like music, please listen to Cowboy Carter by Beyonce. If you like Beyonce, listen to it. If you don't like Beyonce, I think you especially should listen to it and go into it with an open mind. Just a reminder, Since I've already talked about Twin Peaks this episode, the next episode will be extra special. I'll be talking about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and I'll have a special guest. And me and that guest are going to be discussing a Q&A that we had with Cheryl Lee. I'm very excited about it. And the special guest is not Cheryl Lee. I think I have to mention that. So tune in next time. It's going to be a great episode. I am so excited about it. Until then, I'll be talking incoherently about Beyonce. I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is Summer Solstice on the June Planet by Bail Bonds. Our closing theme is I Feel It All So Deeply, also by Bail Bonds. Before you go, don't forget to give Coffee Nick's Movie Picks the Nick's Pick by subscribing and rating us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Again, that's at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks.